As you begin to build more data inside of your profit planner, this annual dashboard is going to fill out more. I've only filled out 3 months of data, so the data that you're going to review here is limited. But the idea here is to just show you briefly all of the data that is available to you in each of the dashboards that's inside of the profit planner. So the annual dashboard is going to be the second dashboard that you see. The first one is going to be the balances dashboard. And the balances dashboard is simple. For every account that you add to your setup tab, you're going to have individual pockets for each of those accounts. And you will have essentially what your debt ratio is for the company, for your liquid accounts, as well as with your liabilities. And you're going to see what your total cash balance is available, how much you have saved for taxes, and how much outstanding liabilities you currently have. So you'll see the details there for each of the individual accounts. But the annual tab is probably going to be one of the tabs that you use the most often, and because it gives you a bird's eye view of your business for the full year. So when you're looking at the annual dashboard, everything is going to be automated except for just you choosing the dates. Now, the year that you choose is going to populate. So you're going to have more years available to you the more data that you put into the transaction tab, because that is where it's pulling the year from. So if you only have data for 2023, you're only going to have 2023 or all time as options here in the drop down menu. Once you begin to enter data for 2024, 2025, 2026, and on, then you'll see those years available to you here in the drop-down menu. So I'm going to use 2023 because that's the years for the data that I've entered here on the spreadsheet. So what the spreadsheet tells you, firstly, it gives you an overall of your profit planning. Now, your profit planning overview is going to be available on the right-hand side here. So you'll see what your goal revenue was versus your actual revenue. If you see a negative here, that means that you have earned more than your goal. So that's fantastic. It's going to show you what your yearly profit retention goal is. So your goal is to retain $61,000 in profit. So far in the first 3 months from the data that I've entered, we've retained $51,000. So for the year so far, I still need to retain another 10, and that will continue to grow as you do your profit planning for all of the remainder of the years if you have not done it already. I'm sorry, for the remainder of the months of the year if you have not done it already. You're going to have your tax savings allocations. So far with what you've entered in your profit planner, you should have $7,000 set aside for taxes. You've set aside $0, so you still need $7,000. This is how much you can pay yourself so far in the year for the first 3 months. This is how much you can spend on expenses, and this is how much you should have spent on marketing. So all of that data will be available for your profit planning here on the right-hand side. Now on the left-hand side, you're going to see your actual profit and loss data. So you're going to see the annual income. You've made $69,000 this year. You've spent $17,000 this year. The first thing that I would do is I would look at what my expenses were versus what my budget was. So I have spent $8,000 more than what my budget was. And my budget should have been based off of my profit planning. So now that I can see this, I need to either, one, I need to earn more revenue so that I can hit my profit retention goals, or I need to pay myself less because I have spent my owner pay on my business expenses, or I need to really budget hard for the remainder of the year in order to make up for the over expenditures that I have so far. So that's going to give you all of your data. You're going to have what your net profit goal is versus what your actual net profit is. And then you're going to see how much of your profit goal you have remaining. So 16% for the year so far. So that's fabulous. You're going to have a graph that's going to show you your income versus your expenses and the fluctuating wave of profit throughout the year. You're going to have that data here available to you as well. So you're going to have your income for January versus your expenses, your profit in terms of dollars, and what that profit margin was, so 76%. You're going to see a quick amount of data here for your budget. And the data that's going to pull up here in this budget variance section is going to be the items of your budget that are the most varied. So if you're spending way too much on a category, or if you are spending way too little on what you've budgeted, that's going to pop up for you so that you know when you are budgeting for future months, then you can try to adapt to what your business is trending. You're going to have all of your expense categories so you can quickly see what you're spending the most money on. So for the data I've entered, we're spending the most on shipping supplies. If you click it and just hover, then you can see the numbers pop up, okay? Just try not to move it. So for rent, I spent $9,000 this year, and for shipping supplies, 36. Those are my two highest expenses. You're going to have a graph here that's going to show in black what your goal was for your profit planning versus your actual. So you can quickly see that your expenses is the reason why we are not hitting our profit retention goals. And you're seeing that data here in other places as well, but a visual is always nice. So now I know I need to really focus on lowering those expenses or earning more money so I can make up for those expenses. And below, you're going to see all of your income categories and your expense categories with the amounts that you've spent and earned in each month for the year, along with your totals on the right-hand side. The monthly tab works similarly to the annual tab in that it's going to track your profit planning for you along with your real data, but it's going to be narrowed down on a monthly basis. So every single month, you're going to be inside of this monthly dashboard looking at your revenue goal versus your actual goal, looking at how you're doing on a monthly basis for your profit planning, which is going to be in this section here. And what you're going to see is essentially the spreadsheet's going to tell you how you're doing. So for our revenue goals, for example, our goal was $30,000, but we actually made $23,700. So a little bit low here on our revenue goal, but that's fine. We still have time to make it up. For your expenses, your actual expenses in the company, you're going to see that here on the left-hand side. So $5,680 from the data that I have added onto the transactions tab. The monthly data that you see here, the monthly net profit, that's going to be what your true net profit was. So your income minus your expenses. Now, as I said in the introductory video, the way that the profit planning works, it's not based off of net profit. It's based on retained profit. So how much of that net profit have you kept in the business after you've paid your taxes and after you've paid yourself? So when you're looking at that profit retention here, even this is going to say that your profit retention goal is 2,300. It's going to look like you made your profit goal if you see your net profit here, but remember that profit retention is based off of other balance sheet items. So if our profit retention was 2,300 and our actual profit was 1,820, which matches what you see here, you can see that's because we haven't paid ourselves and we haven't paid our taxes yet. So once you pay your taxes and once you pay yourself, then you're going to see what that value here is. So if we have $15,000 over what our profit retention goal is, you can easily see that 7 of that needs to go to taxes because you have to pay your taxes, and another 8,000 of that is available to you to pay yourself. Now, these values here, when you go to the profit planning tab, you have the two options of your current revenue to base your values off of, or your goal revenue, which is this number up here. When you're looking at the annual and monthly tabs and you see these goals versus actuals, the goals are going to be based off of your actual revenue. Okay, so how much money you've actually earned. So if you do earn more money, you're going to see these goals and these availability of what you can pay yourself, what you're going to pay for taxes, and how much you can pay for your marketing and operating expenses. Those are going to increase as your income increases. And those are all based off of whatever profit percentages you built out on the profit planning page. Now below, you're going to see all of your income categories, your expense categories, and what your budget was for the month, along with all of the data that goes along with it. So for each of your income categories, you'll see all of the income that you earned from that category. You're going to see all of the discounts that you gave out and how much in sales tax that you've collected. Now, as a reminder, sales tax is not income. So it's very important when you are entering your income that you're separating out your sales tax, because sales tax is a liability. It's funds that you are just holding until you remit it to the state. Now, your expenses, same thing. Reminder, as we said before in the transactions tab, the discounts and sales tax are optional. So if you're entering that data, you'll see it here. If you're not entering that data, they'll just be zeros. So you'll see all of your expense categories and how much you've actually spent. And then you're going to see your budget versus actual for those same categories. So if our budget was for merchant processing fees is $900, but we've actually spent 500. We can see what the variance here. If it's in red and it's negative, that means that you've overspent in that category. So in order to make up for it, in order to hit your profit retention goals, you'll need to either make more money, pay yourself less, or you'll need to watch your budget or your spending in other categories to make up for that over expenditure in one category. So all of this information is going to be very helpful for you when you are choosing to spend your funds throughout the month. Next up, you're going to have a comparison tab. So you have a couple options here. You can compare by month or you can compare by year. Okay, so if we are comparing by month, let's say I'm going to do January 2023 versus February 2023 versus March 2023. Now, you can do this in any manner that you see fit. If you want to compare different months of different years, you can do that. If you want to compare 3 consecutive months, you can do that. This is to allow for you to see how your data is trending throughout whatever period you want to track, and so you can see how your business is either growing or not growing. So when we look at the first 3 months, we can see all of what our income was. So income, our expenses, and our profit. Income, expenses, and profit. It's going to give you your data on where you made the most income, where you spent the most profit, and this is going to be in order by highest to lowest for all sections. And it's going to give you a graph as well, so you can easily see for January, my highest expense was rent. For February, my highest expense was rent, so forth. And it's going to show you where you made the most money. In January, all of my money came from Shopify. In February, most of it came from Shopify. I got quite a bit in Etsy. And then in March, I have a lot coming from Shopify and just a small amount coming from Etsy. So you can see the variances. The graph that you're going to see up above is really just to show you your trending line of profit. So when we're quickly looking at this, we can see our profit is pretty consistent. Our income is consistent. Our expenses are consistent. So long as you are looking at this comparison sheet and you're hitting your profit retention goals, then you're golden. You're doing great. Okay, so next up, you're going to have your 5-year dashboard. As a reminder, this is a 5-year multi-year spreadsheet. So the 5-year dashboard is really to show you how your business is trending on different categories over a 5-year period. So you'll see how your income, expenses, and profit trends for the full year over a 5-year period, as well as all of that hard data available to the right. Your profit planning, it's going to show you what your profit planning goals were versus what they actually were here per year. So it's going to balance itself out as you get more data into the spreadsheet. It's going to show over a 5-year period where you earned the most money and where you may need to focus a little less on. It's going to show you where you were spending the most money here. So we have rent coming in at $9,000 and shipping supplies once more. That's consistent with what we saw on the annual and monthly dashboards. You're going to see what your profit goal versus actual profit retention was for each of the years available there as well. And you're going to have a budget report. So the budget report focuses all on your budget. My favorite part about the budget report is this little section down here. Okay, so first of all, it's going to show what your actual budget was, what your actual expenses were, and what the variance is. For each year. It's going to show that in a graph form as well as the hard data available here. You're going to see your highest variances dependent on category. It's going to be in this little graph over here to the right. And then you're going to see each month of that year that you have chosen in this drop-down menu, what percentage of income your expenses were. So hard data is going to be there as well. Like I said, this is my favorite part. So what the spreadsheet is going to do is it's going to start tracking the average amount spent in each category for every month of every year. The more data that you get in here, the more accurate it's going to be, or at least more useful it's going to be. So what you're going to see when you're choosing different categories is where you're trending expenses are. So we can see for January, February, March, I made this way too simple on myself. From the data that I have entered on the transaction tab, looks like these first 3 months of the year, I tend to spend about $80 a month. So when I'm building my budget out, let's say in 2026, I've already entered data from 2023 through 2025. I can easily see what my budget should be based off of cumulative data from prior years, depending on that expense. And I can also see which months I am tending to consume more expenditures. So if I tend to buy more office supplies in January versus in March, and that's trending over the years, I know I need to budget more in January for office supplies. So I highly recommend using this often and going through to make sure that you are budgeting accurately to what your business actually needs by going through each of these expenses. And then down below, you'll see for each month of whatever year you've chosen what your budget was versus your actual was, and then you'll see what the total variance was for the full year on the right. Now, you're seeing all of this data here. This is all going to be hidden. That's all of the back end data. If you do accidentally unhide that data, I highly recommend just hiding it right away. You just do that by right-clicking and hiding the columns so that you don't delete any of the back end data, because that goes into all of the calculations. Okay, you are going to have a sales tax tracker. So it's going to show you what your income was, how much in sales tax you've collected for whatever year you've chosen, and how much you've remitted. This is just so you have a quick visualization of making sure that you are remitting what you've actually collected. If you were in a period, I mean, there's always going to be some variance like month to month or quarterly to quarter, but as long as those are eventually balancing out, then you know that you are golden there. So it's going to show each month what you've collected versus what you remitted, and that will also show in graph form here too. Okay, and then you're going to have the profit and loss generator. The profit and loss generator is going to be the profit and loss that you are going to export and provide to your tax professional at the end of the year to file your taxes. So all you'll need to do here is choose the year that you would like to pull the profit and loss statement for. That's going to change the date here. You will need to enter the name of your company up top. And then all you'll need to do is export the statement. Now, you may want to clear out some of this blank space before you do it. The reason there is so much blank space is because on the setup tab, you have so much room or so many options available for all of your categories. So I have to leave room for that on the generator. But to hide the white space, you'll just highlight these rows. You're going to right click and put hide rows and select OK. Do the same thing for the expenses here. Select, right click and hide. When you want to unhide them, you're just going to select these little arrows to unhide those rows. And to export this statement, all you'll need to do is go to File, Download, go to PDF, and you will just choose the page orientation or the paper size that is going to fit your printer, and then you will export it and send that over to your tax professional. All right, I'm going to unhide these rows. And then we are going to close out this video. The last thing that you're going to have available to you is your asset list. This is because when you go to the transaction tab, you are going to have an asset option of $2,500. This is just for your tax professional. Most of the time, in the way that we follow this in our business, if you have a different policy for your company, you can use a different number of what your asset value is going to be, but it typically is going to be lower than $2,500. So generally, if something is over $2,500, then we'll put it on the balance sheet as an asset. If it's under $2,500, we'll put it on the income statement so that the client can talk to their CPA about that item to see if it would be better to expense that item or to capitalize that item. So if it's under $2,500, you can generally do you can create an account called equipment purchases under $2,500. And then if you do purchase something for over $2,500, you'll just use this asset over $2,500 item. It will not show up on your income statement. Instead, it will show up on your asset list at the end. You'll just export that and then hand it over to your tax professional as well, so that they know that you did purchase something that would need to be depreciated on the tax return. Okay, that is all for our directions on how to use the spreadsheet. If you have further questions, please leave them in the comments or send me an email. If I need to make another video on how to do something, I am happy to do that. Have a good day.